Broadcasting live from the Greater Perimeter, it's time for Greater Perimeter Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to another episode of Greater Perimeter Business Radio, where we spotlight business leaders, innovators, entrepreneurs making waves across Atlanta and beyond. I'm your host, Ramzi Daklouche. This episode is brought to you by VR Business Sales of Atlanta. You can reach VR Business Sales at www.vrbizworld.com or at 678-470-8675. Today's guest is someone who's redefining how businesses manage their most critical financial systems, payments. Joining us is Mitch Torbett, Senior Director of Sales, Business Development, and National Team Leader of Payroc. With nearly a decade in the payment processing industry, Mitch has made its mission to help business owners improve cash flow, reduce fees, and streamline operations, all while building meaningful partnerships along the way. Whether you're a seasoned business owner or just getting started in B2B services, this episode is packed with insights and on navigating the evolving world of payment technology, protecting your bottom line, and growing your network the smart way. Let's dive in. Mitch, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ramzi. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for the option to be here. Thank you. Appreciate
How
that.
are you, and how is the year going for you?
Fantastic. I got to tell you, it really started out quick, and it's just been a fantastic year. We've got a new acquisitions coming down the pipe with our company. We've purchased 22 companies, Payroc has, in the last 2 years. So things are moving quick.
Wow, fantastic. So, Mitch, let's start from the beginning. How did you get into this, world of payment processing?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. Well, it's kind of a funny story, actually. I just started dating my now wife, and I, was going to be moving into a family situation. So obviously I needed my income to be somewhere different. And I had met some successful people that worked for the company. They interviewed me and I interviewed them, and they were sharing with me their commitment to excellence and how they just really take care of their clients. And that was just me all the way. So it was just a win-win. So I started training, and that lasted about 2 years. And then now I'm training other people, of course. But that's how I came to the company. It was just by friends that were already working with Payroc.
And what did you do before that?
I was actually building cell towers, which is why I wanted to pivot, because there was too many airplanes all the time in the field.
Yeah, wow. And before that, what did you do? I mean, cell towers was your first career?
Actually, I owned a tree service that I sold for a profit in 2007, which, as you know, that was a rough time to sell. But we were on the front end of it.
Man, I wish you kept it, because now these companies are selling really well. Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. I trained a lot of its now competition, but it was fun. It was just time for me to sell, and wanted to move out west. My brother was already out there, and I wanted to go skiing.
Well, okay, fantastic.
Utah, yeah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
And what brought you back to Atlanta?
That girl, my wife.
Is that right? Yeah.
My wife, Victoria.
They sometimes do that. So a lot of people think all processors are the same, right? They don't care what they have. So what's the difference? What's the big difference? Why would I choose one versus the other? Oh,
that's a great question. So if you think about the companies that advertise, we see Square, we see Stripe, okay? Those are not what people think is usually the case, is that all processors are the same. That's actually not true. It's quite the contrary. So we are a direct processor, meaning that there is no middleman, right? Mm-hmm. People actually buy from us and sell back to the public, just like WorldPay. They will buy from us like Stripe. They're not a direct processor, so therefore they must buy their time or their railroad tracks, if you will, as we call them, and then they resell to the public businesses. Same with Stripe, Square, both those companies and others. There's actually about 3,000 third parties, and there's only about 12 actual processors like Payroc.
So what's the big difference between working Payroc straight? Because, everybody knows Clover, Stripe, all these, and a lot of people use them, right?
Yes.
What's the difference between working straight with Payroc than working with these companies?
That's a great question. And we even have, some companies that are third parties that even have our name somewhere in them, but they're not actually direct, if you will.
Yeah.
And so you really have to be careful in this industry with so many thousands of companies out there. You have to be really on your toes when you look for these kind of things, because again, there's just thousands and thousands of these third parties. But the difference is, to answer your question, is that let's say you're selling a business, which I know that you do a lot of, right? Mm-hmm. And let's say that they're using Square, okay? And let's say that they're using Square and their rate is public knowledge around 3%. So if their revenue is, let's say it's a small company, $100,000, just for quick numbers, and we're going to be able to go in there based on that average ticket and absolutely cut that in half.
Right.
So from an EBITDA standpoint, at the end, when you're looking at those books, or when they're doing their taxes, what have you, they're going to be, if we're doing that for half, then you're going to put 1.5% back into the business. So that's what we do. We take away the middleman who's making that extra layer of profit, and we give it back to the business.
That takes me to the next question. So yeah, you're right. I mean, cash flow is the lifeblood of, we talked a little about small business, right? So how can, and I think it's misunderstood, because I work with a lot of businesses and I ask them about the merchant services, and they have no idea what they pay. Why should they pay attention to it? And how can they pay attention to it? Because let me give you a fast story. So I was helping a lady sell her business, right? And she didn't have a good, system and all that stuff. But she showed me her merchant service. Look at all these payments I'm getting, right? And then at the bottom, I looked, and they were charging her extra $75 a month, right? Plus a percent plus. I mean, they literally said, you got to stop. You're paying way too much. She had no idea. $75 for is a PIC, whatever they call that. PCI, right? Which we should talk about that. Buyer beware. PCI is a ripoff, I think. Right?
Absolutely.
They need to be taken care of. But then she was paying a percent, right? They may have told her, it's a small percent, 2.75, and then 25 cents per transaction. So do you understand how much money you're actually losing, right? And they pack it because, I hate to say this, but, her English was not first language.
Sure.
And uneducated, but she's, what she should be doing. She's good at what she does for a living, but I think they take advantage of her. How can buyers be aware of this? Because I don't know if there's laws for this or there's no laws for this. So kind of walk me through this, because I deal with a lot of businesses, and typically I want to introduce them to merchant services, right? But how do I do that? And main thing is for small business owners, how can they protect themselves?
Absolutely. Well, the first line of your defense is knowledge, right? So if you about 90% of businesses, believe it or not, Ramzi, are not even getting a statement. So if your company is no longer sending you a statement, or you're having trouble struggling to find that statement, red flag. That's when you need to reach out to us. And that's when you go to our site, and we help you out this way. But you'd be very much surprised. So if a company says that their rates are, like you said, 2.75%, but you nailed it. On top of that is that $75 PCI fee, and nowadays is actually going up to $155 a month PCI fee. PCI stands for Payment Card Industry, and what it is basically, it's not a government fee, which most people think that it is, but it's not. It's actually the industry getting together and creating what I think is it's a sham, honestly. It really is. It is, and it started out at $19 a month, and that was 2 years ago, and now it's $150 a month, $155. I believe Heartland is charging. How
can a business that's $200,000, $300,000 a year survive on that?
You nailed it. It is really tough, and that's where we come in. When I'm usually sitting down face to face with my clients, that's my preference, and that's the first thing I look at is that bottom line, and you really have to find it, because it's not just that, Ramzi. It's also the equipment that they get stuck with, that they're in a lease
or rental, and they can't get out of it easy, and
right. So and I also find that there's previous companies about 50% of the time that I'm helping, and these merchants have previous leases or previous rentals. They've sent back the equipment, but guess what? They're still getting charged for it, and so therefore I help them do that. But one key feature that we help our merchants do is we actually do the PCI for them annually. In fact, I have a team that does nothing but that. So we make sure you are not going to be charged not any amount. It's zero, and even if you do receive a fee, we reimburse it to you. And we also have a a merchant assurance policy. It's even on our website that if you ever find a price that is more than ours, we have to beat it. So from a standpoint, I mean, we literally have to beat that price.
That's incredible, because I don't know how you educate and what venues you use to educate small businesses, right? Because you may be in a BNI group or chamber group, but not enough, because I think there has to be national education to small businesses to look for this. Because I could tell you for a fact that owning a small business, even before this business that we had, we looked at this on a regular basis, and I was shocked that they started charging me PCI because something we had to do that takes 2 minutes we didn't do, or we didn't know we had to do, or we missed an email because we're busy, whatever that happens. And they charge, at that point, it was $55. They were charging me, and then I called them and said, either come take your equipment or you take it off. Either way, just do something, because I'm not going to pay for that. But, how do... no, I'm educated. I knew it. I found out about it. I did it. I went to the website, all this stuff. How do most people find out about it? Like, how can we protect these small businesses? Because it's irritating. They don't know where the money's going. They just know it shows up if they have, QuickBooks, whatever. It shows up, credit card charge. That's it. And that's it. Is there a way for them to kind of learn that? What's the one thing they should look for today? If anybody listening to this podcast, say, oh, okay, let me go do this.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I'm so glad you brought that up, because you're right. It is, it can be misleading. It can be, ultimately, most of my clients are utterly confused. So we approach it like this. Bottom line is, what is coming out of your bank account at the end of the day? When they go into their business bank account, or they're from a sole proprietorship, a personal bank account, what have you, whatever whatever says merchant on it, they need to start adding these things up. And what you do is you simply say, okay, let's take that $100,000 business, for instance, that we talked about. And if they're getting, if they're, 5% of that or 4% of that is coming out, all they have to do is add up how much is coming from their business or their checking account, and add that up, including the equipment, including the PCI charges, and then divide that by their total volume of credit card volume.
Right.
And that equals their what we call all-in effective rate. Mm-hmm. And if that is anywhere north of 2%, you need to call me.
North of 2%.
That's right.
Some people are paying 3% and they're happy with it.
Yep. And that's I'm glad you brought that up. It works like this, if I may. If you're, let's say, a coffee shop, right? And a coffee shop does thousands of transactions, hundreds and thousands transactions every single day, right? So that per transaction fee adds up. So people say, well, I'm only selling, small cups of coffee, like $7 cups of coffee. Why am I getting charged the most? I mean, my neighbor down here is getting charged like $200 a month, and I'm getting charged like $450. And it's based on that average transaction. So it's actually the contrary of what most people think. The lower the ticket, the more of those per transaction fees, they add up. And like for instance of Square, and we talked about, just your other third parties, if you will.
Stripe and others.
Stripe. And there's a lot of public information out there, especially now with AI. So one thing you can do is in your, just by due diligence, is just to go in and Google, or preferably go into AI like ChatGPT and just say, what is the difference between my company, Square, and Payroc? And it'll just tell you, it'll literally break it down for you that we're like half the price, number one, because we're not buying from anybody else. But that's what people can do.
So that takes me to my next subject. How is AI changing the industry? Besides searches, everybody does that, right? Command control, I call it. Command control. If you have good command control of ChatGPT, you can really do well with it. But is AI changing this industry? How would you see it in 3 and 5 years in the whole credit card industry?
Oh, wow. Man, I got to tell you, yes, it is. It most definitely is. I use it on a daily basis. The biggest change that I see coming down the pike is that there's no longer going to be these third parties, these thousands of third parties that are going to be able to walk into these businesses and utterly not say what's the truth, right? That's what happens. They say, we're a direct processor. We're processing direct. Well, not if you're buying from me. You're not. Not if you're buying from WorldPay. So how it's changing things is that it's making it much more simpler for your average merchant to simply go onto AI right now and just say, what's the difference between Payroc and the company that I'm with, whatever that company is. And it's going to say, I need pros and I need cons. And you're going to see it right then and there. It'll say if, in fact, they are a third party or if they're not.
They can also just put, hey, I have Square. Is that the best deal I can get from my barbershop or for whatever it is? And
yes,
probably come up with different solutions. Anything in the machines itself or the point of sale itself that's changing with AI? And do you see anything coming up AI at the point of sale?
Yes. We're working on it every single day. In fact, we develop our own terminals, the one I brought with us, but we have made those implementations. We have much of our AI is in beta right now, but it's to be released shortly. Our beta programs last anywhere from a year to a year and a half. And what we do is we give those to our producers in the field, like myself and other heavy producers that are able to manage a lot of transactions and what have you. And we monitor those merchants super closely. But yes, it is changing the industry. The biggest thing I see, again, is that it's going to be very difficult for merchants to be lied to or taken down a path that they didn't think that they were going to be on. In other words, they were told one thing, but now another thing's happening. So they started out, the first couple of statements are 2%, just like they were promised. But then what happens? Every quarter, third parties, how do they make money? They actually do what's called tiering. Okay, and so if they start out with a 2%, say, flat rate, right, and that 2%, or it ends up being 2% with all those fees, including the PCI or what have you that's not there yet, but when it does come in, that 2% obviously will jump significantly, especially on that $100,000 business that annually.
Right.
So when something gets, so what these businesses, these third parties will do is they will meet and they will discuss what they're going to rename the card. So let's say you got a Chase Sapphire Business Reserve card, and you've got an American Express Platinum card, and you've got just a Citi card, right? Best Buy Citi card, and then you've got a debit card. So debit, one misconception is that debit is actually half the price of, or less than half the price of credit. People don't realize that. So if all I can do in meeting with my clients is get them and show them to how to just take more debit. For instance, there's a 13 location bicycle shop that I have been helping for years, and we have put debit pin pads in those businesses, and you'd be surprised the differences that can make just by doing that one thing. Because
is there a reason for that? By the way, I understand. I know that American Express works. I mean, we're processing the same thing, but why would debit be cheaper than a credit card?
Great question. So if you think about it, let's do that Delta Business Reserve card, right? You're going to get 1 point for every, 1 point for every $10 spent, right? Well, where do you think that comes from? Who do you think's paying that? The merchant, right? So the merchant is literally paying for me to get my Delta points, which is quite frankly just in the last 2 years, the industry or the merchants have said, stop, we're not doing that anymore. And that's when Payroc came out. Well, actually, we were already out with these 3 different programs. So you have, if I may suggest, so you have traditional credit card processing, which is what we've known for the last 40 years. It used to be the Diners Club, and that turned into American Express, and then it became like the tail wagging the dog. And that went on since, it was the Wild West there until the last 2 or 3 years. And Payroc was really the first innovator to come out there and say, here's how we're going to do this. So we have 3 different programs. One is traditional, and that is just doing it like you have been doing it. But guess what? You're not going to pay like 3.5%. You're only going to pay under 2% usually. Yeah. And then there's, if let's say you want to share the fee with your customer. So the merchant says, hey, I tell you what, we're going to take care of all the debit, and I will get to that. I'm going to land this plane about the debit, but we're going to take care of all your debit. If you'll just be so kind to use a debit card, of course, we accept all major credit cards, but if you're going to use, a fancy credit card, we just ask that you pay the fee. So we just pass that right on to the to the customer. Yeah. And then the other program is just passing all plastic, and that is directly passed on to the customer. So there's 3 different programs there. The first one, traditional. The second one, which is sharing the debit and credit, whereas the merchant will pay the debit and the customer pays the credit portion. And that's the happy median. We find that most 74% of our clients prefer this route because it is, think about it, it's the fair, happy median. Yes, Mr. Customer, we do, and Mrs. Customer, accept all major credit cards, but respectfully, if you want your airline miles, yes, we'll give those to you, but you pay the fee. And,
right. Yeah.
And from a debit perspective, to answer your question there, debit being half the cost or less than half the cost of credit is because they don't have those miles. They don't have those, bank.
No perks.
Yeah, exactly. No perks. So therefore, without the perks, you have,
cheaper processing fee.
Exactly.
Interesting. So may I ask you about this? So let's say I have a coffee shop, like you brought up the coffee shop, right? And now everywhere you go, there's a tip. So this tip adds to the charges, credit card charges, right? So the employee is taking the tip full on. So now the owner is paying for the service fee on that tip, right?
Yes.
$1, $2, $3, right? So they're paying that 2-3% on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we can split that up actually.
Oh, okay.
You can actually split that up. In fact, I mean, we can adjust it to however you deem necessary as the business owner. Mm-hmm. So let's say you even want to share it entirely. So you want to share, let's say you want to pass half the fee, whatever it is, to the customer. So you're going to give them a flat rate of say 1%, and we're going to cover everything else. So
you could do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one way of adjusting that.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, from your experience, do retailers or coffee shop owners or restaurant owners know that the tip has a charge on it? And are they charging the person behind the customer service person they have for that?
Yes. Well, depends on how it's written up, right?
Okay.
So if you're sharing the fee, then no, that comes into play of what you're sharing with the customer. So you can split it up accordingly. But in that, for instance, if it's all plastic, then yes, the customer is absorbing that fee on top of that tip because it's and the tax. Sorry, not the tax, but yes, the tip.
Yeah. So. The next set of questions is going to be about fraud and chargebacks, all the stuff. And again, that's detrimental to small business, right? We're talking about small business and big business, by the way. It's still detrimental. But before we do that, is AI playing a role in chargebacks? We're going to see something with chargebacks and especially fraud, because first fraud, then chargebacks, right?
Yes.
Is AI playing a role in that?
Yes. We have our risk team, which I'm on the phone with. Not a lot. I mean, this happens maybe, and I have hundreds and hundreds of businesses that I help on an annual basis and monthly basis, but we don't have per se chargebacks. It's really industry specific. So there's industries that you just know they're just high risk by nature. But the fraud perspective, I'll give you, for instance, there was it was a colleague of mine working for a different company, and he had suggested that he has two businesses, and it was a family owned both the businesses. The wife worked in Atlanta. The husband worked in Atlanta at the apparel mart where they have jewelry that's sold, and the wife works in Alpharetta, Georgia, at another jewelry location, right? And so what had happened was a fraudster, bad actor, comes in to first the apparel mart. Don't even know how he got in, and purchases $9,000 in jewelry. And first he says, verbatim, this is what the merchant told my colleague, is that, well, that card didn't work. So do you have another card? The merchant says, I've got an Apple card. I don't have the card, of course, but I have it, I have the number. So I'll just read it off to you. So then that's when it becomes, watch this. He doesn't have an Apple Watch to tap. He doesn't have an Apple phone to tap.
But he has an Apple card.
But he has the Apple card to say it, right? So that turns into what? Card not present. That's the most dangerous way to take a card. That's
when you get charged back.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter about the signature. We have measures to completely get rid of that. When I enter any particular business for the first time, I've contacted the company and I've asked just the 1-800 number or the direct line to the business corporate headquarters, and I've asked the controller or the matters that be directors if they have inquired about a new merchant account. And you'd be surprised if it's said that no, obviously we know it's fraud, and we just, it's just handled accordingly. We just pass that on to the FTC. Federal Trade Commission. And but in that particular scenario, the purchaser, the fraudster, went over to the other store and got another $9,900 worth of jewelry on the same card. And they had not spoken about it until, I guess, later that evening. They found out they had both been defrauded.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Now, if they would have been written with us, right? So we have insurance for those type of things.
Mm-hmm. Even if they do manually?
Yes, even if they do manually. Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the basic things that a business can protect themselves from chargebacks?
Well, number one, never take a card not present. I mean, come on, that's just bad business. If somebody says, I'm going to give you over the phone, you say no. Let's say you're in the automotive industry. Look, 55% of my books are automotive. And let's say it's Friday afternoon and you just want to get home, right? And I just want to drop the keys off. The guy's going to give me a credit card number. I'm going to run it. There's better ways. So watch this. We are purposely showing business owners on a real time in front of them or sharing screen environments where we're showing them how to send a link via text and or email or both, where people can just pick up their phones and just, Apple Pay, Google Pay, Samsung Pay, any pay. They can even split it up. Let's say they want to put $500 paying for that car on one card and $750 on the other. They can split it up. They can put half on this debit card and half on that credit card. And but it's encrypted this way, right? But the one thing they can do to answer your question is to just do not enter a card. Make sure it's tapped, or the EMV, that stands for Euro Master Visa, that little chip on the card. You want to make sure that goes into the machine or it is tapped, and or the Apple Watch is tapped, or the Android is tapped, or the phones are tapped.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I think anytime you enter the numbers manually, you're opening yourself to fraud and chargebacks, yeah. So from tap to pay, you talked about that, to mobile first experiences. Where do you see the industry heading in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think we're going to do away with fraud from a standpoint of there's not going to be so much of it. Like, let's talk about that for a second, if I may.
Yeah.
So what typically happened, or what, other than people purchasing credit cards off the dark web, what typically happens, however, is someone will call from usually it's a different country, and you're hearing, maybe it's the last one I heard about was in South Korea, actually, or it was something on a different continent, right? And it was they were pretending to be a dentist office in the States, right? It's always pretending to be a company in the States. That's how it goes. But it's an accent, and but no matter what, accent or not, our underwriting is checking to make sure that business is legit. Mm-hmm. And what does that do? That's also enabling us to stay at that or under that 2% mark on traditional processing. And but what they do is they somehow get other companies to allow them to process credit cards. They already have 15 to 1,500 black card or black market credit cards they've already purchased, and they're going to run those cards accordingly, and it's going to be in the name of that dentist per se, right? But the dentist never had any idea that any of this is going on.
Yeah.
In fact, they just know somehow because they got contacted that they've been compromised.
Yeah. So, is there any new technology in this business coming up in the next 3-5 years?
Most definitely. You mentioned AI, right? That is one key factor, and that's why it's going to be able to troubleshoot these equations much, much faster. So our underwriting team, we're at the cutting edge of this, and we've always been that progressive company, but now more so than ever because of AI.
So let's talk a little bit about partnerships, change the subject a little bit. So you're big on win-win partnerships. Can you share an example of strategic partnership or referral relationship you had that created meaningful results in this, for you and for both sides? Actually?
Absolutely. A wise man, my father, once said to me, you can't lose what you never had, So whether it's 1% or 50% or 75%, I'm always on the lookout for people that are, let's say, retiring, or people that are just have time on their hands, or they just do a lot of in-office work, but yet they have a multitude of contacts. Their Rolodex is just, a mile long. And I'm the first to say, you know what, you could really make money with that with that Rolodex. And how? Well, you're going to partner with me, and I'm going to give you 25% of everything that I make is going to come to you on a residual basis, just like it comes to me on a residual basis, because that's how we're paid as agents in the field.
Sure, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I have clients that are making $2,000, $4,000, some making $6,000 or $7,000 a month just because they gave us a name and a phone number.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it really is. It's really changing lives.
That is a win-win. I mean,
especially for retiring individuals.
Yeah. Great way to kind of keep them busy and, allow them to make some money, more golf.
Yes.
Yeah. In an industry that sometimes seems so transactional, right? I'm in the same industry, very transactional. How do you ensure relationships are long-term and value-driven?
How do we show... I'm sorry, ask that one more time.
How do you ensure that your relationships stay long-term and not just, value-driven, not just transactional?
Perfect. That's a fantastic question. So glad you brought that up. So I don't do contracts. I just don't do them. I mean, unless you need to, purchase a huge POS system and you've just got to finance that. Of course, we have all those different ways of renting, leasing, tax deductions, but I truly implore my customers to stay away from those things and to just purchase outright. But if I don't do contracts, and the only thing that's keeping me in the business as their merchant services provider is that I let my yes be yes and my no be no, and that has to always remain the same. You're only as good as your last presentation,
right?
And you never get a second chance to make a presentation. So, letting your yes be yes and your no be no is how I maintain that. And that's predominantly how our company maintains that as a whole.
Yeah, I tell you from your passion, and that's not the first time I talk to you. You guys are very passionate what you do, and it's incredible. You can see it come through. So, and I can see how people want to build relationship with you and kind of.
I'm thrilled by it. I love this industry. I truly, if I may pivot for a second.
Sure.
I remember, I guess one of my, you had mentioned, how you maintain longer business. I want to give you an example. I'll never forget Christmas Day. It was 2017. It was Christmas Eve. Sorry. And there was a gentleman that owns a sporting goods store in Gainesville, Georgia. And he had contacted me. He had remembered that I gave him a pitch, some months ago. And I come in there to purchase because, I'm an avid angler and love to fish and what have you. And so he remembered me. He calls me on this day and he says, and I answered my phone right away. I knew exactly who he was, and I knew exactly what he might be calling for. And he said, "Hey, listen, the gentleman that was helping me, they have gone dark on me in this situation, and I need a terminal. I need it tomorrow." And so I got on the phone with corporate. I said, "I'll call you right back." And it was like 5 minutes till 6. I called corporate. They got it out the door that day. It was delivered on Christmas Day.
Yeah, keep going.
It was delivered on Christmas Day.
Tapping. Okay. See, deliver on Christmas Day. What happened?
So we were able to not only provide that equipment for him that day, that next day, but also we reduced his rates as I had quoted him before, and that was 2016. So
wow.
He's still with me, and actually we split that up. So he does about this particular store does about $700,000 a month in revenue. That's millions on an annual basis. He went from spending thousands, like almost $10,000-$12,000 a month, to now paying about half of that. How do we do that? He has one account that is cash discount for those particular what he deems necessary items to go that direction, and then a traditional account so that he's able to take all debit over here on that traditional and able to take all the credit cash discount expensive cards over here, and that brought his total rate, his average effective rate, down to 1.12%.
Oh my goodness!
Instead of 3%.
I don't think I've ever heard of these rates. I probably didn't know much about Payroc.
It's a lot of fun.
So that, some of the passion you have and the way you talk about your clients and your relationships has to come from company culture, right? Some of it, personal, right? Because we all bring that extra thing that we bring into any business that we run or part of, but a lot of it is probably company culture. What's in Payroc company culture that makes it us meet people like you?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. So I was mentored by a gentleman. His name is Rich Norton, Richard Norton, but he goes by Rich. And, I met him 3 months or 4 months after I had entered the industry, and he became my personal mentor. He is till this day, almost a decade later.
Oh, wow.
Rich is, let's put it this way. I mean, he is just a man among men in my book. He runs a charity that is for homeless and people that need shelter that are trying to change their lives. He personally sponsors all of these things. He is when it comes to he owns the Super Crew, which is of Payroc. So the Super Crew consists about 300 individuals, agents just like myself. And then there's the team leaders like myself that manage those and train those individuals that are rising up to become team leaders. So we train from within. That's important.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And we're also always most always in front of the merchant whenever possible. And that's a big difference because, there's so much that's missed.
And you guys must go through a whole lot of training on customer service more than anything else.
Absolutely.
We do. Not as much technical.
We do 4 blitzes a year. So that's, all of our new agents are in the field 4 new times a year. They're able to go to these blitzes, and we're able to go to, let's say, Birmingham, Alabama, or it's a city in New Mexico, and we're training them hands-on. So they're literally driving with a trainer like myself for an entire week, and then we're discussing those environments in the morning at 7 a.m. the next day. So it really is the best training in the industry, and it's said all over. I mean, people just know this, but Payroc truly is the safest space to be for new agents in the industry.
And they can be part-time, full-time, anytime they want.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great question, because actually we prefer to only work with individuals that are prepared to do this full-time, to treat it like a daytime job. Now, don't get me wrong. We put you in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So if you are...
I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what you do.
I'm trying to recruit people, man. I'm going to put you in business for yourself, but not by yourself. I love that.
Right. And so, you've got the early birds that want to get out there like myself. I mean, my favorite time to get out there, and I pull doors every day. I love it. I mean, I really love it. People be like, I can't believe you love doing that. I do. I love meeting new people, and I love helping them. But when those garage doors start opening and I'm there and I'm like, hey, just great to meet you. I just wanted to give you my card by way of introduction, just let you know I'm in the neighborhood and I can help.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it really does make a difference. So
you built a very strong career, a decade now, raising a family. How has being a dad influenced what your approach to business, leadership, and service?
Oh, that's a great question. So our daughter, she is actually at NYU, Tisch School of Arts now. And, I worked with her extensively, and she helped me out. I remember when she was like 13, 14 years old, and she was helping with myself with, and with the business with my business, my part of the business, with new clients and helping to onboard them and what have you. And that taught her a lot. I don't know if that had anything to do with her getting into NYU. She pretty much did that on her own.
What is she studying?
Film.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, film. And she's
Good
just
for her.
She loves it. Oh my gosh. She's just loving it. She's having a fantastic time. Yeah. Just dinners every other night. Pizzeria is the best pizza on earth, I think.
Oh, of course.
Joe's Pizza.
I don't know about that. Yeah, every corner has Joe's Pizza, by the way.
That's right.
In Manhattan.
And then our other daughter, to answer your question, Chloe, she's 15 now, and she goes to Lasser High School. She helps me on a almost weekly basis. I allow her to do some things to help me with the business, and it just sharpens her skills. It's getting her, like we did with Ella, getting her used to dealing with customers. Get them, starting kids out early. We believe as a company is imperative. And I'm not the only one. It's the people that Rich Norton has apprenticed does the same thing.
That's incredible, because I have 5 daughters, right? So one of them is never going to be with me. She's a hand surgeon. But the other one, who was in law school now, is full-time with me. And she left her law school to do this. She loves every minute of it. I have another one, that would be joining me this summer as well. Both would be working for me full time.
Wow, that's fantastic.
I love it. I can't wait.
Isn't that great? I mean, and we get to spend so much time with our family members.
Yeah.
I got my older brother into this industry in 2018.
That speaks very highly of the industry. When you have your wife, your older brother, your kids involved in it, that really respect to the industry, respect to the work and the company you work for, speaks miles. I mean, that's incredible. What a story. So if you had 30 seconds with a business owner who's on the fence about switching processor, what would you want them to know?
All right, we're going to draw a line down the center of the page, and we're going to put pros on the left and cons on the right.
Yeah.
And we're going to literally just go down that page, and we're going to do that with Payroc, and then we're going to do that with their company. And I guarantee you 10 times out of 10, Payroc wins.
That's incredible. Wow. How many agents do you have in Atlanta?
3,000 total. In Atlanta, you've got myself and maybe 15 or 20 more. I haven't done a count recently.
Is that Georgia or Atlanta?
Georgia, not Atlanta, but Georgia, all of Georgia, yes.
Yeah, you built a career on relationship and referrals. Very important to me to talk about. You and I come from a background with, BNI, and, we understand networking really well. So you built a career on relationship and referrals. What is your approach to networking in a way that's authentic and actually drives business growth? Any tips for turning connections into real partnerships?
Absolutely. You mentioned BNI, right? So I'm part of the, as you know, the Success Alliance in Alpharetta, Georgia, BNI group chapter. And it's the giver's gain, which is the BNI, principle. The core principle is the giver's gain. And, so let's say your goal is to get 10 referrals this month or this quarter or what have you. And the idea is that you want to really give 20 referrals to get 10. Right. And that's how the numbers work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. And how do these, besides that, you meet people all the time, right? You're probably in locations, stores, businesses on a regular basis. How does that work for you with even referrals to these businesses that are not part of your BNI, not part of your chamber or whatever it is? How does it work for you?
So you mean when I'm walking into a cold environment? Mm-hmm. Well, let me kind of role play with you, right? So I'm walking to, is that the question? Whereas...
how do you remember them? How do you make them memorable enough to kind of make sure refer people to them? Because not everybody is, you guys are a huge chapter, 65 people or 75 today, I don't know. Every day it's another 10 people that join the chapter. But how do you, outside of that, that's your kind of core. Right. But other than that, you're meeting a lot of businesses. How do you refer people to these businesses? Like if they're working with you, car mechanic, for example. Let's say just car mechanic, right? You see their work and all the stuff. Do you actually end up referring businesses to them?
Oh, absolutely. As you know, as we discussed, I've hundreds and hundreds of businesses, and these are small businesses, mostly mom and pop. But I do have enterprise companies that are my businesses that I actually cultivated from BNI. These are opportunities I feel that would not be as recommended, if you will, if it was not for BNI. So I do believe that in business, it's important. A wise man once told me, you need to take 10% of your time working on your business, not at your business.
Yeah, not in your business, absolutely.
And so working at it, and that means offering when I'm walking into a cold environment, I'm getting to know them. I want to know about the fish on the wall and where'd you catch that bass and how many pounds and what lure did you use, and where do you guys hunt and what part of town is your property and what else do you enjoy? I want to know about their families, and this builds a rapport. I authentically want to know these things. Just I'm that guy. I'm just a networker by trade. But by doing so, you become a trusted part of their business. And it's not just the first time you show up and you just go walk out with the business. It's not. It's cultivation, and you come back and exactly, and it does pay off.
Yeah, I love what you said. So I think we have this is in common. I really, the word I use is curious. When I talk to people and I use this platform, for example, I'm just curious about people in general. I love to see what people do, how they do it. Don't envy anybody. I wish them all the best of luck. But like you said, for example, you talked about, you're an angler. I want to learn how to surf fish because we have a place, on the beach. So I want to learn how to surf. I have no idea.
Well, you need to come with me. I'll teach you.
So, see, this is why I use this platform and other platforms, right? Now working because I learned so much more, not just business, because life is not just about the business.
No, it's not.
I don't go to networking events just to, do I get referrals? For me, it's what can I do to help them? And even their pitch or their, 5-minute presentation, I'm very honest about, hey, this sucks or it's good or whatever, because I want them to get better. I really genuinely want people to get better. But the word I use always, I'm very curious about people, and that's what makes me network really well, because I like to go networking. I'm actually very reserved in some ways, but I like to go networking, and because of that, I learn a lot about people.
Likewise. Yeah. I got to say, likewise. First of all, yeah, we definitely got to go fishing. I mean, me too. Exactly that. I'm fascinated by small business. I'm fascinated that, look at how many small businesses there were, say, 10 years ago, and then do the math now. It's exponentially grown. Not only do we have more, people that are entering the planet, but businesses are, that is now way north of half of what constitutes the GDP in America.
Yeah, and the baby boomers are getting older.
That's right.
So I deal with a lot of buying and selling, right? So I sell a lot of baby boomer businesses, a lot of them. I mean, typically when a business is ready to sell, either is failing and they're young, they just haven't done well with it, or baby boomers have done very, very well. Right now, average age of a business owner in the business I'm selling is over 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they're ready to retire. And somebody young coming, right? So, yeah, you're right. I mean, you have a lot of opportunity to kind of help these young minds on how to run a business that somebody cultivated and started and may not have had even a high school degree, but now they were, mowing lawns. Now they have a huge landscape, hardscape business, right? I mean, just amazing how this happens. So let's talk about these young people.
Yes.
Because you and I, been tried and true, and we became, now we're an age probably that we are more wise.
Sure.
Because we made tons of mistakes. I mean, I made tons of mistakes. That's how I become.
Likewise, my friend.
Yeah. So now I'm kind of a little bit smarter, but still, every now and then I like to make my own mistakes. So, but you have some young people coming into the business, B2B business, services business, and I think the most rewarding business is where you started, right? Listen, this is a commission-based business. Go.
Yes.
Right? I love these businesses. For me, I strive in these businesses. So what advice do you have for them to get started, not get frustrated, and to go get their first, let's say, 5 deals fast? I asked that question, let me tell you why. When I started in this business, my biggest question was, well, how do I go get my first 5 listings? That was it. Just tell me how so I can go get it. And a lot of people stumble to give me a good answer until I kind of find somebody that can mentor me and help me say, here's exactly what you do. And I still do that till today to get more listings. So tell me, in your business, let's talk about merchant services, somebody starting the business. How do they go get it? And what should they go after? And just go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So great question. That's a fantastic question. That's what sold me on this industry. And Rich Norton, my trainer, my mentor of all these years. Oh, you do? I'm telling you.
On the phone, on a podcast.
Well, he's done thousands of podcasts and also other. I mean, he's just known on social media, YouTube. Rich Norton, CC Sales Pro, he has developed a system, a training system that is second to none. It is so far surpassed any competitor tenfold, and I'll tell you why. Here's why. Not only do we do the 4 blitzes a year, where we're spending 4 weeks out of the entire year, and you're in these meetings every morning with Rich Norton. You're having dinners. We pay for all the dinners.
Oh,
Rich
wow.
pays for all the rooms. All you have to do is get there. Yeah. Right. In some cases, we help people out. If they need a plane ticket, we're gonna get them there, no matter what. If we're not gonna let anything standing in the way of somebody with desire, determination, and the will to want to succeed. That's what we look for. But going through the training process is actually a lot of it is now done online via YouTube videos that Rich Norton has created. Mm-hmm. And you can find those everywhere. If you just type in Rich Norton and Super Crew, you'll find those. So what I do when I'm personally training someone for the first time, especially if they're young, new in business, even new in sales, the first question I'm going to ask them is, can you treat this like a full-time job? Because that's important. It doesn't matter when you start working. I don't we don't care if you start working at 11 a.m. and go till whatever time, but if you can just treat it like a full-time job, you will be successful. It's not a matter of if.
That's incredible.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And therefore, also, I'm in the field personally with these new recruits, and I'm pulling doors. I'm showing them how to walk in there and say, hey, I gave you my card last week. Does that sound familiar? I don't think I got one of yours. Do you mind if I pick it up? I'm going to send you an email, and I'd like to come back by and just see if you had some time to look at. Or they're watching me actually go through the presentation. A lot of times I'm able to just right then and there go and just, hey, I'll be right back. Let me grab my book. And those are the best. That's so much fun because I'm excited. I get to share with them. I get to learn about them. I'm curious as can be, like you said. But you can just see the look on the person I'm training's faces when they're like, oh my gosh, you just walked in and out of here and you got the business in 40 minutes or an hour, less than an hour. And like, how did you do that? And it's not rocket science. It's just, it matters. People can smell if you're desperate. People can smell if you are
confident.
Yeah, exactly. So
you
must be confident, and you just simply have to stay in that space.
Well, this has been great, Mitch. So tell me, if people want to get in touch with you or in touch with the company, what's the best way to do it?
Well, two things. They can either call my cell phone number, which is 770-318-3527. So that's 770-318-3527, or text, and I'll respond back accordingly. My website is Payroc, and that's with a C. So it's Payroc 365.com. So Payroc365.com.
Easy enough. All right. Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Greater Perimeter Business Radio. A big thank you to Mitch Torbett for sharing not just his expertise in payment processing, but also his passion for empowering business owners to grow with confidence. If today's conversation sparked an idea or question, we'd love to hear from you. You can learn more about Mitch and his work from www.payroc365.com. And as always, connect with us at VR Business Sales Atlanta, or find the full episode on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building the kind of business that makes a difference. I'm Ramzi Daklouche. Thanks for listening.